This is the Dallas Morning News.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into SportsDay Insider presented by the Dallas Morning News. I am Kevin Sherrington, joined by my pals Evan Grant and David Moore. Fellas, it's been a kind of an eventful few days, has it not? We had the Cowboys in their home opener. We had Kumar Rocker and Jacob deGrom pitching. We had Chris Young got signed. Let's see, we got LIV golf coming up this week in Carrollton at Merido Golf Club. Got a lot of stuff going on here. What's up with that?
Texas is back.
Texas is back. Yeah, Texas is number one. First time since 2008. We're gonna get to all of it, but before we get to all of that, is there anything going on in your personal lives we need to talk about?
My calf.
There's always something going on in Evan's personal life. So
yeah, here it is. Here we go. What is it, Evan? Now
I've got some calf issues here.
Calf.
You've got a cow there at your apartment. Is it like a full blown cow, or is it just
calving or?
No, it's a calf. It's a little baby cow.
That's so great. Unbelievable. You and Gina raising your own cow.
Gina would like to get chickens. I'm like, no.
Your neighbors would appreciate that.
Especially a rooster.
No.
Can I remind people that roosters do not just crow at the crack of dawn either. They just do it nonstop. The most annoying animal on earth. You know, I don't know how people live around.
Well, there are some people that would say human might be number one.
Well, in particular humans too. Maybe even one on this podcast. But anyway, we're not pointing any fingers. So let's start with the Cowboys.
We are boring. We have nothing going on in our personal.
Yeah, absolutely nothing. Well, I had my youngest son's birthday was Monday. Ford was 27.
Wow, Ford, happy birthday! And what a nice note you wrote about what a selfless, caring person he is.
Well, I don't really think it's nice, just accurate. That's who he is. He's a sweetheart. And when even your siblings agree on that you're the nicest, I think that kind of says
that's no
you.
Question. Then if you get a consensus there,
my siblings
and a verbal acknowledgement. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I got an acknowledgement from them about that. So yeah, he's a sweetheart, and his younger sister's birthday is tomorrow. So they were very, very close. They were just a year and 2 days apart.
Happy birthday, Olivia.
Happy birthday to Olivia. Thanks very much there, Evan.
So she's not nearly as nice and sweet. Is that what you're saying?
Oh, the story about the two of them was we have a picture when they were little. They were like, 4 and 3, 3 and 2, and they're standing on the front porch, and Ford's just got this beatific smile on his face. He's just so sweet. And then you pan over to Olivia and you get this big frown on her face. We always say that we
had to balance out.
We used the last of the sugar on Ford. There wasn't any left for Olivia. No, she's a little firecracker. They are best friends and always have been their whole lives. It's just such a great thing, as parents to watch your children get along with each other. I don't know. I feel like that is my greatest joy in life is the love and affection that they have for each other and how much they like to hang out with each other.
Not this podcast.
Not this podcast. This podcast is probably 456.
Yeah.
On that.
I was going to say if it cracked the
on
top
the joy
10,
list,
I feel sorry for your life.
Yes,
you need to revisit some of your life choices.
No question about that. All right, let's get on with it here. We got the Cowboys. I got to tell you, David.
Let's get on with it here. The Cowboys.
That was some deja vu for me. I don't know if it was for you, but watching that Saints team just march through the Cowboys down the field, I got to tell you, speaking of my children, it reminded me of the time that my oldest son, Jake, was playing for Hillcrest at the last days of Texas Stadium. They were playing a playoff game against Rockwall Heath. Rockwall Heath had a running back by the name of Kendall Lawrence who played at Missouri. A very good player. But they had an offensive line that went like, 290 across the front, and our biggest guy was 220 and he was just fat. And in that game, these running backs, both of their running backs ran for 200 yards, and
Oh.
they would run 10 yards down the field before anybody was even close to them. I
You
mean,
had
it was.
flashbacks to that game and this one.
I had flashbacks to that game, watching Alvin Kamara to go through that, go through that line and like on that touchdown run, specifically at the end of the game, and people are just waving at him. Cowboys are just waving at him as he runs by. It was just unbelievable to watch how inept they were. I mean, I don't, and then that was after, of course, the opener when they go on the road against the Browns and just dominated in that game. And then you had Cowboys saying, "Oh, we only used like 3 calls in that entire game when we got 50 that we could use." And my gosh, the sky's the limit, Mike Parsons said. And then they come out and play like that. And of course, it wasn't just all on the defense.
Now the sky is falling. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So David, I'm going to ask you that question straight up front. Who are these Cowboys? Are they one that the Cowboys that beat the Browns on the road and dominated them, or are they the ones that got humiliated at home against the Saints?
Well, you redefine your identity every year, right? And at this point, they are not a good team. It is very rare that early in the season or at any point in the season, a good team, one with championship aspirations, is beaten like that. And I would say a team that feels it has something to prove after years of not proving anything in the postseason. It's hard to explain, and you can't explain that performance if that is your motivational base either. That just doesn't fit with that sense of urgency and a sense of proving something. And now on top of that, throw in the fact that this team was relatively healthy, playing at home, a place that had won 16 consecutive regular season games, and gives itself no chance to win the game, just like they did in Green Bay. And this is a different scheme. This one set off some alarm barrels from me just on the outside looking in, that we've seen how good this Dallas defense can be over the last 3+ years. It's one of the better defenses in the league. They're an outstanding defense when they get a lead and they go into a feeding frenzy with the turnovers, one big play after another, make life so difficult on opponents. But what you saw in the Green Bay game and what you saw in this New Orleans game is an opponent comes out, beats them to the punch, knocks them back on their heels, and not only do they not respond, they meekly go into a corner and get drilled even more. That's a very disturbing, to me, that's a very disturbing trait that goes beyond trends, schemes in that game or whatever, that we have now seen the last 2 games that meant anything at AT&T, an opponent come out, hit this defense in the mouth, get it back on its heels, and the defense does not respond. To me, that speaks a little to who these guys are right now and how will they face adversity going forward. To me, that's a pretty big question now after this game.
Evan, you were watching that game at home. David and I, unfortunately, were on site and saw it up close and personal. I wonder, what was Tom Brady's take on this game?
I wasn't watching. I was at the Mariners game.
Oh, that's right. You were at the Mariners game.
I was just glancing up every once in a while at the screen in the back, wondering 2 things: would Tom Brady end up going to Albernays for dinner, which apparently he did.
Which he did.
And 2, what was the meltdown going to be like? For fans. That was all I could think of. There was nothing that I could actually hear on the TV, because it was just in the back of the room. And as you know, Kevin, I pay detailed attention to every game of the Ranger season, no matter how meaningless or how foregone the conclusion may be, as it was against George Kirby. But I did not get a chance to actually sit down and watch that game on TV.
So I have to tell you, on site, you could tell the buzz in the crowd. Besides the fact that there were a lot of Saints fans there, there was also at times like on the throw, we just cracked all over the Cowboys defense, but the offense was no better. And when Dak Prescott missed a wide open CeeDee Lamb on that little post route there, not only did he, I thought the telling part of that was he didn't overthrow him. He threw it in the wrong direction from where CeeDee was running. He threw it back over CeeDee's, like CeeDee was supposed to have broken back to the right on that.
Well, and
play.
they can talk all they want. Remember what we heard about, well, CeeDee Lamb not being here for camp. We're really not that concerned. These two have a rapport. They know each other. They're going to pick up where they left off. I would say the opener and this game is an indication they have not picked up where they left off. That was clearly, that's a rapport throw between the two guys, knowing, okay, we see this. So when you see this, you break inside, not outside. They both saw that play differently and the coverage differently. And those are the details that when you don't practice in the off season together as much as you did before. And they did not. CeeDee Lamb and I mean, Dak Prescott still threw to CeeDee Lamb this offseason, even though he wasn't at the Cowboys facility. But they didn't have all those sessions at the facility together. He wasn't over at Dak's house, on his field at Dak's house, as much as he had been in the previous 2 seasons. And he didn't go on the trip to Oregon that they took this year, where he took all of the receivers to work on their timing and rapport and get to know each other better. Cooks missed all that. CeeDee Lamb missed all that. Brandon Cooks was there. But now go back, and I don't have it in front of me, but one thing we talked about last year between Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb was, as effective as they were together, it was something like 78 to 79% of the time that Dak Prescott looked in CeeDee Lamb's direction, it resulted in a completion, which is a remarkably high percentage, especially when defenses know where you want to go. It is not up at that level this season, and I think that lack of working together as much this offseason, you've seen it here in these first 2 games, and you saw it on that play in my mind.
When was the sequence? There was a sequence, right, that the Cowboys did create a turnover, right? They picked off. They had an interception, and
receiver fell, and there was a.
And then 4 plays later, Dak threw an
that's what it was,
right?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean that
almost
that
immediately
explained it all.
They were still going uphill all day, but yeah, there were 2 junctures probably in that game they had a chance to get back in and make it competitive, and came up short offensively both times.
Yeah, the thing, David, that strikes me about this is thinking about quarterbacks and receivers, right, and what they do, and the connection between them. And I don't want to date myself too much. Not that I remember watching Johnny Unitas and Raymond Berry play.
Oh
together.
my God!
Yeah.
But there was an old story.
But
there was an old story that for fun they would blindfold the 2 of them, and they would still run the routes and throw them, and he would still catch them.
You think that's true? Do you think that's true?
I don't think it's true, but I do think that we know that they had great chemistry together.
But it makes for a great story, right?
It makes a great story, doesn't it? But here's the thing. I'm with you, David. When you miss all this time, then probably you miss that chemistry. But haven't they played enough together to know exactly what they're thinking of each other? I mean, isn't this exactly what we saw from CeeDee? Remember the reaction he had last year coming off the field, and we got Mike McCarthy's going over and saying something to CeeDee, and it's like sometimes you get the idea that these guys don't even like each other, much less want to be teammates and understanding and being on the same wavelength with each other. I just don't understand this. And it's a little bit like, of course, at one time we all remember when Emmitt Smith held out and then came in. What was that? The second or third game of the
2 days.
season?
Yeah, I missed the first 2 weeks of the season. Yeah.
And then, of course,
yeah.
But what did he do when he came back? I mean, he just right into it. Boom, here we go with Emmitt Smith, and then they're on their way to a Super Bowl. So that's not how it's working out with these guys. If you're going to miss time, if you're going to hold out, which, listen, I didn't write anything saying that what a bum CeeDee was for doing that. He's just taking care of his business. Yeah. And as long as you come back in and play like you're supposed to play and get things done that you're going to do, that's fine. But when you don't, then you open yourself up to all kinds of criticism for it, right?
Sure.
Because this was a key loss. Missing that throw is a lot like the Monday night game between the Falcons and the Eagles. I'm tossing this up as a softball for Evan, because what happened at the end of that game when on a little swing pass out there, Jalen Hurts throws it to Saquon Barkley. It's right there. You can see it, though, in slow motion. His head's turning before he even catches the ball. What have they told you for your whole life? Look the ball all the way into your hands. Don't turn your head. And that's what he does. He
and
drops
he's a good
it.
receiver out of the backfield, too. Usually.
And he is. He's an excellent athlete. I would say, other than Christian McCaffrey, there's not a better athlete at running back in the entire league.
All around, all around
than
threat.
Saquon Barkley. And he drops the ball. They don't get the touchdown there. And that's the difference in the game.
Well,
and
you put the ball in Kirk Cousins' hands.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. You're in trouble then. Evan had turned his back on the Falcons earlier in that game with a tweet, no less, that I think that they probably held up at halftime and said, "This is it right here. Evan Grant has turned his back on his fellas. It's all up to us now." And that's what happened. But my point is that yeah, I got a point here somewhere. My point is that you can't miss these plays. Especially a touchdown play, you simply cannot miss them. You don't get enough opportunities to do that, especially the Cowboys and the way they were playing in that game. And I do think I'm with you, David. I think that this team, once it gets punched in the mouth, has a little bit of a problem reacting to that. That they're great when they're up, and there is a feeding frenzy on both offense and defense, and they play really well. It's the tough times that I don't always see that from them. I don't want to say that they don't always do it, and I'm not saying this is a reflection of their character. I think they just get a little bamboozled at times about why isn't this working, and how can we get out of this?
It's happened enough where there's a narrative that there is a narrative that exists. I think for both the fan base and the media that this team does not respond well to adversity. And
it is the snowball rolling downhill, right? When they're on the positive side of it and they're rolling downhill, they just steamroll teams. When they're on the other side, they get steamrolled.
Well, and they look more bipolar than any team in the league, right? When they're great, when they're good, they're great. When they're bad, when they're not good, they're terrible.
Well, that's what the first two games of the season told us, right?
Yeah,
they looked unbelievable against the Browns
for the last 5 years.
Yeah, I don't know that I've seen it as much over a 2-week period, though.
Well, this is such a small sample size, and I will say, we tried to find trends 2 games deep into a season, and all we find are exaggerated examples of what something is going to be, right? The sample size just isn't large enough. Check back in 4 games, check back in 6 games, then you have that's when trends start to mean something. There really are no trends now, but that doesn't mean there aren't disturbing signs that can become disturbing trends for a team. And
you and Kevin's point about the Dak and CD chemistry or rapport, lack thereof, communication, whatever, the first couple of weeks, is there a parallel to be drawn between Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and the Bengals' performance?
Yeah, I think you're seeing some of that too, because what happens is, yes, these guys have worked together so much and have so much muscle memory. You can say, okay, but they've already had the time on hand, the task at hand, where they should know each other. But what happens is an offensive coordinator and a head coach go in every offseason and go, look, we have to evolve as an offense. So I know the last 2 years, when you see this coverage at this part of the break, this is what we've always done. Well, you know what? Every team in the league knows this is what we've always done. Now, when you see this look, you turn outside instead of going inside. And I'm not saying I'm not sure exactly what happened on that one play with CD Lamb, but that's where you get the differences. Maybe Lamb ran the play the way he had the last 2 years, and part of the tweaks in the Cowboys, offensive approach this year was no. Now, when you see this is going to be our reaction. This is how you respond to that play. And so it is still muscle memory, but you're retraining yourself to, okay, now when I see this, I flash over here. And just because you haven't been there enough and had enough time on task in that moment, you just don't process it quickly enough.
All right, let's move on from there because I want to talk about the Ravens coming in here, and I'm going to say
And I will
this.
say the defense got off the hook very easily by us discussing Dak
Well, they
CeeDee
did.
Lamb
Well,
because
it was terrible. Well, I
yeah,
will say this: that the point is, and that Tim wrote about this in his column about the Kyle Shanahan
yeah,
offense. That was what the Packers were doing. That's what the Cowboys do. That's what
yep.
obviously the 49ers do. And these were all teams that the Cowboys struggle against.
That outside zone read, they have not come close to defending it.
No, they have not. I mean, there were just times when guys were just running downfield unimpeded, you could say.
The defensive tackles were horrible in that game. They weren't holding the edge. The linebackers, which we were praising last week, looked really bad because the interior of the defensive line was letting the offense get right up on the linebackers, and they were being compromised and couldn't take the route. You saw the safeties not filling in. And look, they're strong at safety with Donovan Wilson and Malik Hooker. There were several plays where you saw them not be in the right spot or being suckered into a position, and just poor eye discipline. We're out of spots, and then we're trying to catch up, and it was a mess. It was a mess.
I love that term, eye discipline. I'm going to start using that. I'm going to use that with my kids. I need better eye discipline from you. Real quickly here, I almost hate to say this, David. I'm going to pick the Cowboys to bounce back and beat the Ravens simply because this is going to be a team that they play that does not use that offense, and that even as great a running threat as Lamar Jackson is. We saw in that first game what the Cowboys did against a team that has an athletic running back who's going to get out in space and run a little bit, and we saw how they snuffed out Deshaun Watson.
Dallas does have two spies in either Micah Parsons or DeMarvius Overshown that they can use to spy a running quarterback like Lamar Jackson. One or both of those guys, and depending on the situation, will be that guy this week. Henry, as good as he is still a more straight ahead runner. The Cowboys' pride has been damaged dramatically coming off this last game. They're going to respond. But I will say this, if you want to talk about what team is more desperate going into this game, and that is often the determining factor as far as motivation and how it's played, I would argue Baltimore is the more desperate team. They're 0-2. Right after this, they have Buffalo and Cincinnati coming up. Dallas has the Giants coming up after this. So I think Baltimore is in a more precarious spot for their season right now than Dallas is, which you wouldn't think based off of what we saw in that New Orleans game. But it's both of these teams are trying to show who most people thought they were going into the season, and neither one has played up to that level.
Well, there's no reason to be desperate at any point in time in the NFC East, is there? I mean, it's a dreadful division.
Yeah, there's a lot more grace for them than there is for Baltimore, which is in the AFC, with all those teams stacked up.
Can I ask you guys a favor? Kevin, are you going to definitely pick the Cowboys?
Yeah, I think so.
David, could you do me a favor and pick the Ravens? Because I think you guys were combined 0-12 over the first 2 weeks.
Everyone, yes, it has been unanimously wrong across the board these first 2 weeks.
No one has even brought that
never
up
happened.
Either. And it's amazing. Not one reader has brought that up. You know.
Oh, I may have heard about it.
Yeah. I'm being facetious.
Holy
cow! I've just been bombarded by readers with that. It's
have you really?
My gosh!
I tell all of them the same thing. It's like, are you really holding us accountable for this? You know how much time we spend on this?
You should know by now we don't know what we're talking about.
No, of course not.
Accountability journalism, a whole new take.
If I was any good at this kind of thing, I'd be working in Vegas. I wouldn't be working here. Holy cow.
Yeah, but come on. I don't know that we've started out with our selectors 0-12. And I mean, the thing is, we have a lot of selectors. I mean, it's not like it's just one or two guys.
Evan, we're going to start making you pick Rangers games.
I do that every year, and I get the record invariably wrong. I asked Damon Marks to allow me to pick NFL games this year to see if a garden variety ball scribe could outdo the football experts.
Oh my gosh. And of course he said no, as he should have said.
He said he gave me a resounding no.
All right. All right, Evan, that's going to do it for our the Cowboys segment of our podcast. We're going to move over and talk about the Rangers now. A lot of developments over the last few days. Ray Davis woke up and realized he had not signed his general manager for next year and said, hey, I need to get this done. And so he did, out of the blue, probably with no prodding or anything. And then, of course, we also had Kumar Rocker making his big league debut and making it in a very exciting, hopeful manner. And then Jacob deGrom, who comes back and, I don't know that I've ever seen a pitcher, or certainly not a Rangers pitcher, who's out for months at a time, comes back, pitches great, and then Lord knows how long he remains upright, and then whatever happens to him. Every time that guy pitches, watching him in spring training, he's great. It's a marvel to watch him pitch.
I did say to him after the game on Friday. I said, Jacob, I mean this in the most complimentary way. You are a freak. And it was basically to get him to talk about his slider because he wasn't really thrilled with his slider the first time out. And no pitcher probably should be, right? I mean, you haven't pitched in 16 months in a game. But the thing is, his slider was effective, and he just wasn't happy with it because it didn't have the perfect location that he wanted it to. And yeah, he is a unicorn. I will say the one thing that I know I'm over analyzing and I'm spending way too much time on body language and things like this, but I thought Jacob sounded, acted, interacted in a way that was different than he did after any start he made before the injury last year. I think there's a peace of mind there that he's healthy and all he has to do is work on his craft. And I think that's a huge difference for him.
Well, absolutely. And he is, and you've written this, and we said this when the Rangers signed him. He has the best stuff in baseball. What makes him so great? Because I was thinking about, in comparison to the Rangers pitchers I've seen over the years. Obviously, Yu Darvish had great stuff. His command wasn't nearly what deGrom's is, and of course, then there's Nolan Ryan. But deGrom stuff to me, it's so impressive is that, first of all, just what he looks like. He looks like one of those balloon things at a used car lot that flaps up and down. That's what he looks like to me. Until you see him up close and personal, like in the clubhouse, it's like, my gosh, this guy looks like he's about 6 inches wide. And then he goes out there and he's, the arms are flapping all over the place. And then he goes out there on the mound and everything syncs up and it's just an unbelievable thing to watch.
Yeah, on the mound, yeah, I know what you're saying with how slender he is and how long-limbed he is. But yeah, on the mound, the thing, and look, Kumar Rocker is a different-bodied pitcher, right? He is a big man, and he looks like a big man. And I think the thing that's so similar about both of them is that when they get on the mound and get in a rhythm, it does not look like they're putting any effort into it.
Yeah.
And it all just comes out really easy out of their arm. It's easy gas is the way scouts talk about it.
Yeah, they're both impressive. Now, let me just say this. So, as that rotation then would shape up, let's take a guess here on going into the spring, not even into the spring, but coming out of spring training. What would you peg that might be?
Well, I mean, I think at this point in time, I'm going to expect. I think this is a little bit of a fool's errand because there's going to be an acquisition somewhere along the way in free agency. They're just going to have to be. But I do think that you've got deGrom. You expect to have Tyler Mahle back healthy. You've got Cody Bradford. You've got Kumar. You have John Gray under contract. That's 5 right there. That doesn't that doesn't include Jack Leiter, who I think is making some steps forward. And it doesn't count. It doesn't consider whether or not Nathan Eovaldi, who tonight should be able to guarantee his return if he wants it, because he should reach 4 innings tonight. That'll give him the ability to pick up his player option for $20 million next year. Though I don't know that's something that is to his benefit. I think he could potentially get more than that on the market. But I guess where I'm getting at in a long way, Kevin, is I do think that what has become more visible over the last couple of weeks is that the Rangers will have a significant pool of pitchers to start with this offseason. And that's a difference. They'll have more pitchers and they'll have more health among those pitchers. And they'll have a couple of controllable cheaper pitchers in Rocker and Bradford, potentially lighter, that gives them a little bit more flexibility, which they're going to need because I think their payroll is going to come down a little bit. But it does give them the ability to go out and sign a pitcher or two.
To me, unless Nathan Eovaldi doesn't want to come back and wants to test that market, that's a no-brainer to me. I'd rather have him.
The Rangers have no. They
No,
have
I
no
know.
leg to stand on here. It's all going to be Eovaldi's call.
Yes, absolutely. But what I'm saying is that I would rather have him than anybody I could sign.
If I'm the Rangers, and I don't think that this is out of the realm of possibilities. I think the Rangers are potentially thinking, how could we move John Gray and save some of the remainder of his salary? Use that to apply to bringing Nathan Eovaldi back next year.
Yeah. What about Dane Dunning?
I think the way that they've handled Dane Dunning this year. I think they feel like he's best suited to be a reliever or a swingman. Whether that's the Jose Urena role that Jose Urena filled really well this year, or it's strictly as a reliever. I think the way the Rangers handled him this year was pretty clear that he didn't, despite the fact that he led this staff in innings a year ago. I don't think he was necessarily given the same amount of rope that some other guys might have been. Mainly because the stuff isn't overwhelming. But I think that he'll get tendered a contract. He's arbitration eligible. I think he'll get tendered a contract. I think he's valuable in a relief role, but I don't think he figures into the rotation unless you end up with an epidemic of injuries.
Yeah. Well, I think what you just outlined.
I do think that there are some guys in the minor leagues. I don't think that they will figure in to start the season, but I do think the Rangers feel like there are multiple arms in the minor leagues who could factor into this rotation or in a piggyback role before not too deep into the season. Alejandro Rosario, who was maybe the breakout pitching star in all of the minor leagues this year, Emiliano Teodo, who probably would have gotten a call up in September if he hadn't surpassed his professional innings total high. And a month or two behind them might be Winston Santos.
Okay. All right. So
I guess what I'm saying is it's better, right? I mean, we're talking about pitching depth, which we haven't talked about with this organization ever. And I do think that is one takeaway that the Rangers are going to have going into this offseason is that they're a little bit deeper when it comes to pitching. And this has been a real thrust for Chris Young. And I think they're starting to see some developments there.
Well, I don't think there's any question about that. They've always had to buy pitching before, and that's what they did for that.
That's not a sustainable. That's not a sustainable fat rule.
No, it's not. It's not, and it costs you players, and as I've said before, I didn't have a problem with the moves that they made. And even though they only got a half season out of Jordan Montgomery, they don't win the World Series without Jordan Montgomery.
I don't know that they make even though Scherzer stopped pitching basically in middle September. His first handful of starts, they needed those, and I don't know that they make the playoffs without Scherzer. Those moves were all. Thomas DeJacy has been promoted to the big leagues by St. Louis. Luis Angel Acuna has been promoted to the big leagues by the Mets. The Rangers knew they were giving up big league players, but what they got in return was a World Series, and that's always at worst. A push.
Yeah. Well, and plus, those guys were blocked. Those guys were not going to be playing in the big leagues anytime soon for the Rangers. All right. Well, let's talk about Ray Davis giving the contract to also promoting, we should note, Chris Young. He is now the president of the team as well. So, he was operating without a president before. He saved a little money on that deal. Ray did. So, you have any idea? We've talked about before, and you've written, I've written that the going rate for a GM is probably around $5 million. It's probably, although the price tag is going up. You got any idea? Since he's a president as well, did he get a little extra change?
Well, I mean, I don't know that. Look, he was among, if not the lowest paid GMs in baseball. He was among the lowest in the bottom tier. I don't know if he's gone to the top tier. My guess would be that in the give and take that probably was this negotiations based on everything that was involved, Chris was more than willing, I think, to take less than market rate. But what he wanted was some assurances about the future, clarity about the future. I think he wanted to make it clear that this is not just a one man job anymore, and he really was doing, in a lot of ways, he was kind of doing three jobs because the Rangers don't have a visible president on the business side, and so Chris ended up speaking for the organization a lot on multiple matters. So I will not be surprised if the Rangers promote somebody from within into a GM's role within the next couple of weeks or months. The leading contender for that would be Ross Fenstermaker, the assistant GM. Um, and then what will be interesting to see is if there's some uh, promotions below that, and then some continued additions. Because I think what Chris wants to do is build this staff out. You know, if we're not gonna, I think the approach is if we're not going to spend money and pay the luxury tax this year, okay, but there's no tax on improving the infrastructure and the intellectual capabilities of the front office. So that's where I'm going to look at and see what they do there. Uh, and yeah, I just think that the only thing that I feel like is probably coming is I expect that they will promote Ross Fenstermaker into that GM's role at some point.
And how do you feel about that move?
I think he's ready. I think, look, in the past 2 years, it's basically operated since John Daniels was fired, where Chris Young was the head of baseball operations and Ross was the number two guy. And if Ross is promoted to the GM's role and Chris is the president of baseball operations, it's going to be the same kind of pecking order. I just think when you move a guy into that GM's role, it allows him more latitude to, you can delegate a little bit more authority to him, and you can allow him, and this is no minor accommodation. You can allow him to speak for the organization a little bit more. And that is something that I feel like we don't fully account for how much of a burden it is for GMs to have to deal with the constant spokesmanship role to the spokesperson role to the national media, the local media, to radio shows, and so I think it would give Chris a little bit more freedom.
Doesn't seem to bother Jerry Jones any. He seems to enjoy it.
Yeah, and things have just worked out so great.
Yeah, it has. Yes, it has. Okay,
David, can I just tell you something? I love my favorite video. I don't like the fit videos of players walking in to the ballpark, but my favorite video is always Jerry in his boots walking to the locker room after a loss, because it is the what is the right word? The animation of Montgomery Burns come to life. It just
And this, he had his whole family behind him. The one I did the other day, and I just checked, that was 217,000 views to this point of people
is that right?
retweeting that or looking at that. Yeah, it was him and his grandsons and his sons and his grandsons behind him, and Will McClay all marching somberly into the locker room after the game.
they had
Speaking of
all
which,
their ducks in a
I did
row.
call up the Cowboys story on ESPN.com shortly after the game ended to find that the lead visual on that was video of Stephen Smith laughing. It's become beyond offensive, this bit.
But I saw you say that. I don't know why you give that any kind of life. I
I
don't.
just find it insulting to everybody in media. You know, people think that we're just a bunch of clowns, and all this guy does is kind of drive that home.
Well, yeah, it's a show. It's not he's not being an actual journalist anymore. It's just a show. And yeah, if I guess if I were a little kid growing up, and that would probably make me cry. A lot of stuff made me cry when I was a little kid, but not anymore. I've gotten over all that. I'm grown up. I'm all grown up. All right, that's going to do it for the Rangers segment of our podcast. Then we're going to move over to our ever popular potpourri. We got a lot of stuff going on there. We've got Texas at number 1 for the first time since 2008. Vaulted the lowly Georgia Bulldogs, who just barely squeaked past Kentucky 13-12. I didn't get to see that game, but what
What's
a game
wrong
that
with
must have
them?
been.
Good gosh.
Yeah, Vandegrift, who is not related, I don't believe, to the Vandegrifts who brought baseball to Arlington, the quarterback for Kentucky. He moved a lot, and the Georgia defense, despite the fact that they got great penetration on the defensive line, they just never they never could catch up to them, and they were on their heels all game. And Carson Beck did not have a great game at quarterback.
Well, that's the thing. Look, they still held them to 12 points. And Georgia's defense is practically, NFL caliber. It's the best defense in the country. But man, this is 2 games now where Carson Beck and the offense has struggled. And so they're going to need to get things together here because, of course, we're all pointing towards that October 19th game in Austin when Georgia visits, and in which I would
Georgia's
expect
got a
at that
trip to
time.
Tuscaloosa, and they've got a game against Tennessee before they get to that.
Yeah, well, that's true, and if there's still, whatever order that is, whoever is 1 and whoever is 2, well, let's hope that happens. That would be a great thing to see that kind of happen in the middle of the season, because I will say this: everything is setting up pretty well for Texas at this point, other than Oklahoma, which is I believe at the moment 15, and Georgia, which is 2. Uh, those are their only 2 ranked opponents until they finish against A&M the Saturday.
They don't play Ole Miss this year, right?
No, they do not play Ole Miss this year. They play Mississippi State. That's their first SEC game, and that is in a couple of weeks. So, it just sets up well. Florida's in really bad shape.
Florida's terrible. Billy Napier could get fired before the season's over.
Well, he could get fired before this week.
Yes,
I mean,
week
they were
is over.
supposedly.
Yeah, I thought that was about to happen after. Yeah,
they were
Maybe the head ball coach will come out of retirement.
I hope that Billy wasn't hoping on a kind of recommendation from the old ball coach, because I don't think that he would give him one. I don't think that anybody would. That's just been embarrassing how bad they've been. I don't understand. Florida and Florida State both. The UCF is the best team in Florida at the moment.
Yeah.
So this has been a very interesting development. And so the other development, of course, that game when Texas beat UTSA, which is not a good UTSA team. They got beat 49-10 the week before by Texas State, which just barely lost Arizona State. That was too bad. I'd like to have seen the Bobcats pull that upset off. But this is not a good UTSA team, and we know, of course, that Arch Manning had 5 touchdowns in that game, 4 passing and 1 running, a 67-yard run. He is a tremendous talent. I will say this, as I said, that UTSA team is not very good. So I'm not sure how much of that game is a true example of how good he can be, although he did make one of his touchdown passes was a really nice throw over the shoulder in the end zone, just perfectly placed. But he's got everything going on. I don't know if there's another team in the country that has 2 better quarterbacks. I think Mike Finger of San Antonio said there are only 7 competent quarterbacks in the entire world, and how did Texas end up with 2 of them? And I think that is really a difference maker for Texas. Even when Vince Young was there, Texas didn't have a backup quarterback this good and this promising. So I think this is a really good development for Texas. If this was going to happen, if Quinn Ewers was going to get hurt, and he does get hurt a lot, this was perfect timing. It gives him a chance to kind of get fully healthy. He doesn't have to come back for Louisiana Monroe this week, and it gives Arch Manning more time to develop his craft and to get more comfortable. And I think he will do that. So I think everything sets up well for Texas. We mentioned that Florida was terrible, and one of the reasons why they look terrible is that Mike Elko took his team over there, the Aggies, and they won that game easily. That was a very big win, a very much needed win for the Aggies. I don't question what Mike Elko does on defense, but he got a different quarterback, and because Connor Wegman was hurt, and they brought in Marcel Reed, and the kid played great. He's got great feet. He looked very elusive on the field. He threw the ball well. So, and he's a freshman, and that was very promising for them. So I wouldn't be surprised if they stick with him, even when Connor Wegman is healthy and ready to return. I don't believe in that thing about if you're the starter and you lose your job when you're healthy, you get it back. It depends on everything. How were we playing when you were healthy? And then how are we playing, with the guy that replaced you? That's the situation with Texas. There's no controversy, or there should be no controversy now. Texas was playing great with Quinn Ewers. He went up to Michigan and won in the Big House. They went to the semifinals last year with him. He's on the Dr. Pepper commercials. He should be playing when he's healthy. He should get the job. But at least they know they've got Arch Manning ready to step in when he gets hurt. So also, let's see. Let's move over now because we're trying to cover a lot of stuff here. We've also got LIV golf coming up this week out at Maridoe. I'll be out there on Friday. That'll be very interesting to see how that comes off. Have y'all seen the commercials for that?
Yes.
They have commercials.
Yeah, they got commercials. They're pretty loud. The commercials, we had to dim the volume a little bit when they came on. It's like, remember the pavilion at the Nelson and the legend of all of that and what a party scene that was. This is like that ramped up 10. That they're purposely trying to do that. This is the thing that they're promoting, is that we're loud. It's a party. I read over a little while ago the kind of like the menu for the entire weekend and all the different things they're going to have. They're going to have 2 concerts out there, one after Saturday, one after Sunday. They're going to have, that they refer to one of their things as a party booth. They're just, it's just going to be one thing after another. So I'm going to be wandering around out there on Friday, just trying to get a feel for all that and what that's like.
Well, let me ask you a question, Kevin.
Yeah.
Will anybody be there?
Yeah, I think they will because of that. They're ramping this up so much and talking about. Are you talking about the golfers or are you talking about fans?
Talking about fans.
No, I think fans will come out for this. Evan, you know where you live, don't you? I mean, people will show up out there for that. I'm pretty convinced of it.
Their financial model is different too. They're not looking for the huge crowds that you see on the PGA Tour. Well, they know they're not going to get them for one, so they are marketing it differently. The price point's different. It's a little bit different clientele and a different feel. Like you say, it's more. So many of the other is, come out here and revere these golfers in a country club setting. They're not going for that. They're saying, no, this is just a jumping off point for an entertaining 3 days. Come join us, sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely right. That's the way they're marketing it, and we'll see what it's like. I'm interested to see what that happens. That's a great golf course that Albert Huddleston has and put together at Maridoe. He spent a lot of money on it. Unfortunately for him, he's got a lot of money. So I'll be interested to see how that turns out as well. So is that it? Did we cover everything? Is there anything else we need to talk about? I got the Mavericks are not almost ready to start, but they're in the neighborhood. We're going to have probably a segment on them either next week or the week after, and we got a lot to talk about there. That's a team that surprisingly went all the way to the finals. No one could have predicted that, and I do think that they, or at least on paper, are a better team going into this season than they were how they finished last year. So I'm interested to see how that all works out, and Dirk Nowitzki is already on record as saying that he thinks that they have set themselves up for that.
You just call him Dirk Nowitzki?
No, Dirk Nowitzki. I would never call him Jerk.
No one ever called it.
No. We're on record. The nicest superstar ever to come through this town. No question in my mind. Probably the best person that was a superstar to ever come through this town. He's a one and only. It's almost like Dirk can't do anything wrong. He constantly has kept up this image, and it's not with him. It's not an image. You can tell when a
He
guy's
could do
trying to
something
do
wrong.
something.
He's just a genuinely nice person.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
For all of our listeners who are wondering why Kevin is trashing Roger Staubach, please.
Well,
his email address is ksherrington@dallasnews.com.
Very similar personality. Both guys of. I think the difference for them,
they're both beloved. They're both beloved,
and as well they should be. I think the difference for them, to me, and that's one of the things that made a difference in them as competitors, is that Dirk's ego is just so small. There's no argument to me that he has the smallest ego of any great player that's ever played in this town.
Dirk
No
embraced,
question.
and I obviously I never covered Roger, but I mean, one thing that I thought Dirk embraced really well was his goofiness. He just, because of the lack of ego, he wasn't afraid to laugh. He wasn't afraid to giggle. He wasn't afraid to look a little bit silly.
Wasn't afraid to sing "We Are the Champions" with that voice.
Yes, that's absolutely right. The difference between him and Roger, though, is that Roger had an ego. He just covered it up really well. Like Roger's
it's still there, yeah.
Desire to win and be the best. I mean, he wanted to be the starting quarterback. That all burned in him, with the deal with Landry. For all the great things that Tom Landry did, I was not a fan of the way he handled quarterbacks and putting those guys back and forth.
Roger wasn't either, I don't think.
No, Roger was not happy about it. And that was all just craziness, but people, because Landry was such a genius in every other aspect of his coaching, they just accepted that as well for the most part.
But Roger was letters about Kevin Sherrington trashing Roger Staubach too.
And Tom Landry.
And Tom Landry. Yeah.
Don't you leave that out. All right, I think that's going to do it for us. We're all out now. We've trashed every legend we can think of in this town, so I think that's probably enough. Make sure you tune back next week and see who we trash next week.
Nolan Ryan, what did he really do when you step back and look at it?
Really, was he really that good? I mean, come on.
We'll discuss next week.
Yeah. And we'll bring Stephen A. on to laugh about the Cowboys. How about that? That'd be good. Evan, we would love to get you on to talk to Stephen A. about that.
I have zero.
Look at, will you?
Yeah. We'll see if we can get him on. All right. So from everybody in here to everybody out there, thanks, and we'll see you next time.